Hello and welcome. Episode 24. This is Three Losers in a Church, if you couldn't tell. So to start things off, today's episode is titled Ye of Little Faith. So Sam's going to read a couple passages for us, and then we're going to break those down.
The first passage is Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 34. Was that actually true?
It should be. Unless I pasted the wrong.
You might have just pasted up to 31. Whatever. I'm just going to read some Bible verses. Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to whatever.
Oh, I subdued it. I only pasted part of it, even though that's the whole passage.
Okay, so the inspiration is Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 34. After Chris's it is currently only verses 28 through 31. So if you guys have a Bible, you can follow me. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And the other verse that we were inspired by, or in this case, Chris was Matthew chapter 17, verse 20. I am struggling. He replied, because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. This is the word of the Lord.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking it's been a while since we've done anything straight out of the Bible.
Agreed. It has been a while.
Yeah, so it might be cool to look at this. And admittedly, this is a verse that my professor brought up, so that's what put it on my mind. But he was talking about how, like, in the Western world, we tend not to believe in the idea of, like, demons and demon possession.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured instead of diving straight into, like, demon possession, I would kind of look at the other part of the passage.
We'll work our way in.
Yeah.
Put a toe in the water.
That seems like a later topic discussion. But I don't know. These passages I was thinking about, like, Jesus keeps saying, like, and showing, like, you can do these things, but you didn't have the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, like, the first one was, Peter walking on the water. And, like, he started to do it because he trusted Jesus, but then he started doubting and immediately started sinking. And it's like, why'd you doubt, And then the other one, too, same thing. Like, we didn't read the whole passage, but it was like, Jesus, the disciples are trying to heal a demon-possessed kid. And they're like, Jesus, why can't we do this? And he was like, because your faith sucks, man. Dab. Yeah. So I don't know. I was thinking about, like, that's to me seems like something we don't even take into consideration nowadays, or like think about, or I don't know. Like, it seems like such a past thing, like miracles and trusting the Spirit enough that we can actually literally do things that are seemingly supernatural.
Probably. Peter's probably my favorite disciple. Is it weird to pick? No, it's not weird to pick out a favorite disciple. John picked himself, so it's okay.
The disciple whom Jesus loved.
I love that. But so this passage relates, I think, or I make it relate to one of my favorite passages. That sounds very forceful. I don't mean that forcefully. But so, like, Peter's denial, right? This is probably why I love Peter so much, is that, like, he's literally walking on water, right? And then, like, a couple chapters later, all right, so what is this, 14? So whatever, like 20, 22 chapters later or whatever. That's not the right number. 14 chapters later. He just, like, denies Jesus. Like,
right.
And you're like...
Even in this moment,
he
doubts Jesus and starts, like, your boy, like, takes a couple steps and he's like, oh, I'm on water. But then he starts sinking because he's just like, Lord, save me. And Jesus is like, yo, what? Come on, bro.
Somehow to me that makes a little more sense because, like, walking on water is kind of wild. So in retrospect, I would be like, okay, what's going on?
And we're in the middle of a storm.
Right. So, like, so I think, like, to me, I'm like, okay, that is something that I think everyone would do. So, like, I'm like, okay, good job, Peter. But then, like, dude, like, what are you doing later? like, you literally walked on water.
Saw Jesus heal all these people.
Right.
Jesus fed you. Jesus did this. He raised the dead. What's wrong with you?
I mean, okay, it's very easy to do that, and
Mm.
I do that all the time. But I'm like, okay, I know I do the same thing.
But I think that just goes to show you, like,
Yeah.
even with Jesus right next to him, like, he still has his struggles.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I like in a way. So the disciples basically are all pretty in all the gospels are like fairly open to like owning up to their mistakes
Mm.
while
Yeah.
writing. Except for maybe John, I don't know what he's doing. The beloved one, he's just flexing on everybody at that point. But like
Jesus likes me.
that shows like their faithfulness that their mistakes will be, used for God's glory in some
Mm.
ways.
Mm.
And so like I really enjoy that because if I was to ever write something like that, if I was in their shoes, I would have been like, yeah, I screwed this up.
Yeah,
But
right.
for like entertainment value opposed to like anything else. But like, I don't know. So like for me, those two stories really relate. And like, I think it's very interesting. They kind of play into each other.
Yeah.
But also like really show faithfulness that they like included that in the,
Right, because then
In
Peter
the-
goes on to be like the rock.
Yeah,
like, so, yeah.
which is very interesting. Rocks do sink. They don't really walk on water.
Ooh,
This is mad
That-
up here.
I like that.
Adams.
I don't know if I should like that. Yeah, I mean, I used the word absurd in the first question I
Mhm.
came up with. Like, is it absurd to believe that miracles are still possible in the 21st century?
Define a miracle.
Right, that's the thing. Define a miracle. I mean, I have examples of miracles, supernatural occurrences.
Yeah, I like it's very easy to disregard that they are like there's some weird science background behind all of these miracles, right?
Mhm.
But then I go like that's just not true. Like okay, can you explain taking I forget how many fish and how many loaves of bread
Right.
and then feeding 5,000 people? Like I feel like I'm pretty good at feeding a large number of people. I couldn't do that.
Right.
So like there's this weird like people go like, oh, but like they just didn't understand science. And you go like, okay, well no.
Mhm.
Okay, use modern science to explain any of this. And like
Right.
maybe a couple you could, stretch it and you could make something out of it.
And then he did it again with the
Right.
4,000.
Right.
Like and the other thing that was pointed out to me too is like people back then, even if they weren't Christians or Jews necessarily, they still like the idea of miracles and magic and like omens and all that. Like none of that was really foreign.
Yeah,
either.
for sure.
So like
accepted.
there's already like more of a spiritual culture or acceptance or something.
Wasn't there also the aspect of like even other countries knew of Israel's God too?
I think so.
Like, they hear
Yeah.
the tales of like how
Hmm.
their God is like supporting them.
Right.
And I don't think that's entirely not true now.
But what do you mean?
Like the whole like level of like miracles, believing in that thing. I think it's less common
Mhm.
than probably a couple thousand years ago. But like I don't think it's gone, right? Like I still think that it's I don't know. Like it's still present. People still believe in that. I
Yeah.
like and I think like the vast majority of, a Christmas miracle, right? Like I think a vast majority of people like acknowledge that for some odd reason the world
Just works.
works, but also like strange things happen that no one understands.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, when I was peeing, I was thinking about this. So my bus driver is this 65-year-old Jewish guy, and when he talks about he believes in God, and one of the big reasons he told me he believes was when he was 23 years old, he had one too many drinks. They were hanging out on this bridge, and then he tipped over
Mhm.
and like fell into the river below.
Hmm.
And when he woke up, like he was like hurt, like he had scratches, but literally an inch away was this giant rock.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it would have it would just punctured and smashed his head in. But then for him, he was like, "That's a miracle. If that's not a miracle, then
Yeah.
I don't know what is." And to this day, this is why he still believes in God.
Mhm. And like for me, I think this could just be my own mental justification. But like I think they're just manifesting in different ways. That we have just
Mm.
become accustomed to not seeing.
Mm.
Because I still think, okay, you use what are those things called? Defibrillators. and you restart somebody's heart, like that's voodoo.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Like I understand the science behind it, but like, can we acknowledge how insane that is for a second?
Yeah.
Like, so I know how to use one. I was trained. Weird,
Wow, me
weird
too.
flex. I know,
I was
crazy.
not.
And I'm like, this thing, if I put it on me, I would die. But if I put it on you,
You would.
yeah, I was like, this is
Yeah.
right. Like, I don't, yeah. And like,
yeah. And like that, it's fun. That's a good example because like in the walking on water, that's like an earthly example.
Hmm.
Like it's a human dude with like water, which we're all familiar with, and a boat and like a storm, like all like
yeah.
circumstances that are familiar to everybody, and yet there's a miracle happening within that.
Mm.
And it's like the same thing with defibrillator, you know, like
That's
we
an
under-
odd
like we
example.
we know the science behind
Yeah.
it and everything, but still.
Like the factors that exist in our normalities.
Yeah. And like, interestingly, people say the miracle of life and acknowledge miracles, but don't acknowledge a source of miracles.
Oh.
Yes. Like we've all been in like quote near death experiences, where we're like, oh, it's a miracle I survived that. And that could just be us in English devaluing the word, but like, I still think that people will like seek out miracles, right? Like weird coincidences, right? And those kind of things.
That's also what I wanted to mention too. Yeah.
We're like,
Attributing God to coincidences. I've
Yeah.
heard that argument.
Well, my dad always says he doesn't believe in coincidence
I would,
for that reason.
likewise.
Yeah.
I would say God's funny.
Yeah, God
That's
definitely
also
has a sense of
pretty
humor.
He just thinks it's hysterical. But like, it's very interesting because people could be okay with the idea of a miracle without acknowledging its source.
Mm-hmm.
So they speak of it.
Yeah, I don't know. That makes me very uncomfortable. Where people are like, yeah, weird stuff happens. Cool.
And they just
Right,
go on
right.
with their
And you're
day.
like-
yeah.
I mean, I acknowledge that fact, but I think there's a reason why things happen, and someone who's orchestrating that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I'd be so uncomfortable with that thought of like,
That all these things are happening and there's nothing to attribute. or-
right?
No explanation.
Because there's things. I mean, okay. There's every example I can think of. You can go like, oh, but science could explain that. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, that's not helpful. Yeah, I don't like. I feel like we've just become accustomed to not acknowledging how weird life can be,
Yeah.
and these abnormal things that happen that some people would categorize as miracles. I'm sorry, are like just like, oh, that's weird, cool.
Mhm.
So like, as you were saying, like people were more in tune to that. I feel like we've just kind of like accepted that weird things happen and like go like, I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
'Cause then
that's
it's
what-
easier to
yeah.
move on with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I
Sorry,
think
I
like
didn't mean to
No,
interrupt
no,
you.
no, it's totally fine. Yeah. No, it's not fine. I think that's like what like we're I talked about this during retreat, but we're beings in constant motion, right? Like we just keep going. We're like, oh, like we don't really have time to think about it, so then we'll just say, okay, and then just keep going on. Like that's why I think it's so powerful just to even think and like reflect. It's like, whoa, I could have like my dad always keeps reminding me of the story where, like when I was a little kid. For some reason, we lived in this apartment complex, and there was a giant pool. And he liked walking around the pool, I guess because we didn't want to go down to Long Beach, which was like a 5-10 minute drive down the street. But we're like, okay, let's not go to the beach. We'll just walk around this pool because it's a body of water. My dad was weird. I mean, my dad is
so
weird.
confused. West Coast.
But at some point, like, I was like looking over, and I was like reaching into something in the pool. And mind you, guys, I can't swim to this very day.
You don't
And
know
I
how
was
to
like,
swim?
I can't swim.
I didn't know that.
I was like
Me
2-3
neither.
years old, and then like I was about to fall in, and then some girl who just happened to be like leaving her apartment just goes, "Look out for your kid!" And then like my dad grabs me before I fall in. That's not, and there've been other multiple instances where like I've fallen into pools. There's a theme here. I remember this too. I fell into a pool, and then like I just kept sinking to the bottom, and all I saw was like the light just getting dimmer and dimmer, like the burn in my chest. I was like 4 years old at this time. I should learn how to swim, huh?
You probably should.
But I just remember like multiple times I've almost died, and every single time like someone just saves me. Like
Mm.
I remember like I hit the bottom of the pool. I was looking up. I'm like, oh, it's getting dark. Then some guy just grabbed me and like like Free Willy came out of the water. I couldn't breathe. Also, why I love orca whales. You guys are learning so much about me, but like those moments in life, I'm just like, whoa. Like I think about, I'm like, I truly do believe it's a miracle. Like. Could have drowned. I could have fallen. I don't think my dad would have tried saving me because he can't. I don't think he can. Can he swim? No, he cheated on his swimming test, so he can't swim either.
How do you cheat on a swimming test?
My dad like
Stand in the shallow end.
He's just like, oh yeah, I like tippy toed and then like pretended to swim.
Water
I
wings.
don't know. It was
Like a cheat.
life was different back then. They also told me you need to learn how to swim or else you won't get into college. And here I am, graduated, and I still don't know how to
What
swim.
the heck?
Dab.
What-
I don't know. How do people not know how to? I don't know.
Are you going to like the college in Atlantis?
I don't know. They were just like, yeah. My parents were like, yeah, we don't want. They don't want like Harvard doesn't want like smart people drowning on their watch.
Well, you didn't get in Harvard, so
I didn't get into Harvard, but my sister did, and she can't swim. So,
We're just
anywho,
roasting.
the miracle of life.
Yeah, I like that. Has me thinking about. Maybe we're just not attuned to it. I think that is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
That we're not. Wow, we have. But now here's the thing.
I don't fully agree with that answer, but
Right? Wow, I now know how you feel. I
Yeah,
like, have words to say,
welcome.
but I'm also like, I agree that we are not attuned, but at the
Yeah.
same time, the devil advocate in me is just like, are we just like applying all these coincidences to like a being that is out there, which I think to a certain degree is true, right? Like I think I do believe that God orchestrates everything,
Mhm.
but then me saying that, I'm also just like, it's also such a cop out. I don't know. Like
I feel it's a cop
right?
out answer.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, this is what Tyler feels like
Yeah.
every day.
every single thing. It's great. It feels amazing. It's also great at the same time.
But also,
Yeah, I don't know, because I agree that's a cop out answer of going like, yeah, because that's kind of just like, oh, we suck at understanding things. Oh well, like
Is it a cop out though?
I
Because
think it
it's
is
human
true
nature
answer.
to just suck
No,
at things.
yeah. I mean, I do think it is that, and I mean, as is, we briefly talked about Western versus Eastern thought while we were preparing for this, and I don't want to get too much into that, but like there is things in the Bible that us using Western thought will not be able to understand entirely.
And to even zoom out a little bit, even language cannot
Oh yeah,
explain
Yeah.
what we do. Like
right.
the idea of eternity.
Mhm.
We use the word eternity. We're like, oh, that's cool. But conceptually, do we understand what eternity is?
yeah.
Mhm.
So like, yeah, I think there's some linguistic issues to fully understanding what's happening. But also, like, as we're talking about this, there's probably like 9 meanings to that exact story. I mean, I'm sure the 3 of us could think of 9 meanings, right?
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot there that we are missing because we're not reading it in Greek and we're not, from, Israel
Yeah.
2,000 years ago. And like we live very different lives in a very different time, so it's going to
Yeah.
be difficult to understand the main point. Never mind all of what's behind that.
Mhm.
Kind of to hijack that though, because like we talked about like in the 21st century, we talked about that being in the 21st century. Can we talk about the idea of faith though that comes into play, right? Because you say
Yeah.
like, oh, with enough faith, can we like in Matthew 17,
Mhm.
we talked about like, oh, like with like the faith the size of the mustard seed, you can move mountains, right? Now, like when people talk about that, I've always been fascinated because they're like, oh yeah, like if you have enough faith, anything could happen. And to a certain degree, I think that's true. But we're also forgetting another aspect, which is time,
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
right?
Um,
Oh, so like you can do anything, but you might not see it immediately. I'll
Yeah.
kind of.
like that mountain might move over, 10,000 years.
I hadn't thought about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Dang it, time is so dumb. Ugh.
If we didn't have time, I think we'd be a lot happier.
Yeah, because then, yeah, you'd probably see more of the fruits of what you're doing. You'd probably see the miracles
Yeah.
happening more.
I mean, not to be Sam Sue, but the beauty of reflecting. I don't know. There's things. Yeah, I don't know. Time is a very interesting point. How I like the analogy I just said accidentally, where I said like the mountain might move over 10,000 years.
Mm.
Clearly, like that's an exaggeration, but like it's also, I mean, the mountains do move, but like I don't know.
That's
Like
ugly
maybe you
things.
won't see it,
Mhm.
Mm.
but like just having that faith that will happen,
Yeah.
right? That's like something impossible. Like God doesn't say the mountain will move next week, or
Mhm.
like all at once, or
Right.
within your time span.
Yeah.
He's just saying it will move.
But
I
let's say
think- go ahead.
let's say time isn't a factor though. Do you think with enough faith you could literally walk on water if that was like God's will for you to do?
If he wills it, then sure.
I have. There's two sides of me here. I have a really hard time saying yes, but I am aware of the fact that the correct answer is yes.
I think it's like having 4 people on the podcast. Like, us 2 and then Tyler and then other Tyler.
Another Tyler. I have a really hard time going like, you know what? Yeah. But also like I've seen God do some crazy things that I don't think were possible.
Mm.
Walking on water has not been one of those things, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, maybe you're not meant to walk on water. I don't know.
Of all people, I think I. No, I'm kidding. Ooh, I was joking. Calm down.
Was
I mean, so there's a little bit of truth in there for John. But
I do wonder that though. Like maybe like I could do a lot more if I just believed more. Maybe that's literally as simple as it is.
I mean, I don't think it can be more complex than that.
Yeah.
I think similarly to like, I forgot. You talked about like the word miracle being desensitized by culture over time.
Yeah.
I think similarly, like when we talk about faith, like we're so fixated, especially the culture that we live in right now, like instant gratification.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure there's someone out there. We're like, oh yeah, you pray about it, you're gonna, and they're like, oh, I'm not gonna get it right away. Like as a child, I thought like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, if I pray, bam, God, please give me that 500 piece Lego set that costs like $100, and my parents will get it for me someday.
Mm.
Was it in His will?
Even you said the word someday.
Hmm?
You said you even said the word someday
I think that's because it's
because you're 25.
I'm
so-
25. As a kid, I was like, please give it to me tomorrow.
Right.
I used to pray for a damn Nintendo DS. I went to bed crying about a Nintendo DS. I was like, God, I pray that I get a Nintendo DS. I pray I get a Nintendo DS. Lo and behold, I did get a Nintendo DS,
Just going.
but then my mom broke it over her knee. So, God is funny.
God is so funny.
I prayed for it. It became my idol, and then He shattered it.
I get really angry, like, because he's funnier than I am. And like, but like, it's not fair because he has a lot more opportunity to be funny than I can. So
Tossed you and Adam in the same work building.
yeah, like the weirdest things are so. I don't know. Anyways, we could do a podcast on how freaking funny God is.
That's true. That would be a good topic.
That would be. Write it down.
Chris is taking notes right now. Just kidding, he's not.
I mean, shoot, what? Yeah, I like. You said this line, but I interrupted, where it might not be in His will. Yeah, I don't know.
You
And
got
like,
that face going on. Yes.
yeah, this is the I'm so conflicted face. Yes.
Yes.
I like. It's very easy because like, there's always the line of like, oh, I want this,
Mm.
and I think that this is what I need.
Mm.
And like that's valid, like pray that,
Mhm.
but like acknowledge that you said that's what I think I need.
Mm.
Right.
Say that like thy will be done, right? And like that's such an easy cop out to be like, okay, well this is what I want, this is what I want, but God, your will be done. And it's like, that was kind of extra, I apologize, but like it's so easy to do that, and like that doesn't like. Even if you say that wholeheartedly, right? There's still a part of you that's just like, oh,
You still have your own desire.
you still
Yeah.
right, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
And
you have
if
to be faithful that your will is not always in line with His.
Right.
But that's why they always talk about the idea of recentering too, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to like realizing, though you may want something, like God knows better, right?
Yeah.
Because if you take this too doctrinally, then it's like, okay, with enough faith, I can do miracles. And Peter walked on water as a miracle,
Right.
which means like,
I can
That's
walk
just-
on water.
yeah, that's part of the faith of Christianity is
Mm.
like getting enough faith to literally walk on water, which isn't necessarily true, and isn't true for anyone that we
Mm.
know of besides Jesus and Peter. You know,
I'm jealous
and
of.
Jesus was the Son of God. So, but like, there's that. But yeah, but like it's. At the time, that was a moment. That was like a teaching moment. It was relevant to the fact that there was a storm and Jesus
Yeah.
was trying to prove a point, and God willed that for it to happen. So,
Do you think it's God's will for Peter to be the only person who walked on water?
Well, John didn't walk
I
on
don't-
water.
I
He
don't
didn't,
know.
but he's the beloved one, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
He might have a reason for someone else to. Maybe someone else has, and I don't know about it.
Well, it's like the
Dude, no.
same thing. It's like, oh, like, did God will, like, do you think it's God's will to have Israel be the chosen people, right? Like,
Mm.
could have been anyone, right?
Mm.
Or am I just looking at the
No. You're just looking at a very interesting example that I was not going to apply, but works. Yeah. I like,
Ooh.
because my first thought is like, yeah, but that's a teachable moment. And I was like, but like, could it be a teachable moment if I walked on water?
Mhm.
Yes, but like, where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But we have the ability. I think also like with the joy of the Bible, it's like we can also see like how Peter's character, like God's the greatest storyteller, right? Like his character is the one who's gone through so much development. So much. The guy who was like, oh, like Jesus at some point was like, yo, get behind me, Satan. Like we see how this
Yeah.
guy went from like, oh, I'm just a fisherman, and then he's like, you'll be like the fisher of men, and then he's just like, what?
Mm.
To this guy who like doubts, to this guy who like he's the biggest screw up of them all, right?
That's why I love Peter.
Yeah. So relatable.
He's
The
just
three like,
terrible.
and it's so poetic how God's just like 3 times he denied, and then 3
Mhm.
times he's like, I love you, Lord, and then feed my sheep, right?
Mm.
And then even the way Peter dies,
Right, literally crucified upside
down.
Mhm.
Baller. Like, okay, I don't know if baller was the right response to that. I mean, like, I mean, metal.
metal, there
definitely
we go.
metal, yeah.
Definitely metal.
But like,
Baller,
I
yo,
don't-
what's up?
that is kind of baller. Though, but I don't know.
Nah, bro, not right side up, upside down.
I don't know. He's a good example. Peter's so. Dang it. Peter should be the beloved one.
We're all testimonies, though.
Yeah.
Hmm. I think we've reached even less of a conclusion than normal, and I think that's okay.
No, I think
I think we actually,
Yeah, I think like so. A
You're
big.
wrong, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, my feelings.
No, I think we kind of came up with some large points, which I wouldn't call those answers, but I think they're digestible and legitimate, right? Of like,
Because people have been talking about this for like
Oh, yeah,
2,000
yeah.
years. So
I think observing that we are not attuned to miracles,
Yes.
that like we have to be faithful that God's timeline is greater than ours,
Mm.
and that like His will has a purpose, and we'll be done without whether we wanted to or not.
Mhm. For sure. He's not going to be limited by us. Well,
Cool.
This has been episode 24. Ye of Little Faith. Thanks for listening, guys. Be sure to check us out. We have multiple platforms now. You can check out our website, 3 losersinachurch.com. You got YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, the podcast app.
Stitcher,
You can, if you're on
Stitcher.
YouTube, you can hit that little bell
ding! Oh, I don't have my
For-
mug.
for some notification.
Who's your head?
And be sure to tell a friend about us.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, let's get that. Let's get some
That's a
word of mouth
challenge.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We
Yeah, we out.
Have a good one.